have paid out their tickets for the evening.
And they are good to go here. Gift Storm and Grixis Death's Shadow. Brennan on the play. He'll start off with a big old ball of damage. Fetch, Shock, and Thoughtseize. So he's down to 15. We'll get a look at what Caleb's holding, though.
If you wouldn't pay 5 for it, you didn't really want it.
So 3 lands. It's 2 Shivan Reefs and an island. The spells, he's got 2 Goblin Electromancers, a Remand, and a Ritual.
So the take here is really contextual based on what's in Brennan's hand. You want to answer all of the Electromancers, all the Barals.
All right.
So if you're light on removal spells, you want to reach for one of those. If you have some more interaction like that, then you can go for the Desperate Ritual.
So he's going to take the Goblin Electromancer. You don't think you're ever really taking the Remand there?
I think that in most spots you wouldn't. There are spots you're more likely to take the Remand out of a control deck than you are out of Death Shadow, just because of how efficient everything you're casting is. If you had a hand that for some reason you were set up to Gurmag Angler on like turn 4 and you couldn't fight over the Remand, then you'd take the Remand. I don't think you experience that game too often with Death Shadow versus Storm.
Brennan going to shock down to 13 and passes. Caleb draws another Ritual, so he has 1 Pyretic, 1 Desperate right now.
And removal spell at the ready for DeCandio is a Dismember, so he can do a lot more damage to himself.
Brennan will Thought Scour. Death Shadow and Swamp draws Stubborn Denial.
That's good in the matchup if you can get a creature on the battlefield. And these are getting to the turns where Brennan has to be relatively mindful of his life total.
And opt for Brennan. Sees an island, doesn't want it, he'll put that on the bottom.
He already has a Bloodstained Mire in hand at the ready for lands. Not really in the market to go to 4.
Yeah, at this point on Brennan's side, it feels like he's looking for a threat to actually put a clock down on Caleb.
Looks like he also has Blood Crypt, so yeah, plenty of lands already at hand.
Yeah, plays Bloodstained Mire, and he'll pass. Caleb picks up a Manamorphose. Third land, Brennan knew about all 3 of those. Last turn, Caleb didn't go for anything like Electromancer. He does have Electromancer and Baral in hand for at the moment. But still passes, just not willing to commit any of those creatures just yet. And on Caleb's side, what it really feels like to me is he's waiting for Brennan to make the first move.
If you're under no pressure, you don't have to start committing these mana creatures. When you do commit them, you want them to at least force an interesting interaction. You don't just want to play them, have them get Fatal Pushed, and have the turn pass.
Right. That kind of trading is what Grixis wants to be doing.
Right.
Fatal Push pickup for Brennan. That does play here. So without a threat on life points, you look at something like Blood Crypt in Brennan's hand. When does he start hitting the brakes for dealing damage to himself? You know, the difference between Blood Crypt tapped versus Blood Crypt untapped.
Well, apparently now, but you want your Death Shadow to be difficult to Grape Shot to death.
Okay. Gifts Ungiven drawn for Caleb. He's up to 7 cards in hand. He actually is going to miss a land drop this turn. You see him pass.
If your threat's going to be something different, for example, Brennan has a Snapcaster Mage in hand. If you wanted to just opt, get that on the battlefield, then you just don't really want to take any more damage.
Death Shadow drawn for Brennan. That's a card he can cast now.
And you do want to get to 9 so that you can convert those Stubborn Denials every time.
Yeah. Brennan wants to make a threat. Now Caleb will likely remand of any threat that Brennan goes for. Try to cycle it for maybe another land. And Brennan passes as well. Go back to Caleb. This is card 8, so it's Noxious Revival. He's now over limit. This might get Caleb to play something as opposed to just discarding.
Yeah, if for some reason you're able to get a mana creature and it just sticks around.
Yeah.
That's great. could go for Ritual Gifts Ungiven, just see what happens. So
Yeah.
you're playing right into Stubborn Denial.
He could also just cast Manamorphose here.
Yeah, if it finds a land, great.
Yeah. Now, because he has so many mana creatures, the Baral and the Goblin Electromancer, there's a real cost to using a Manamorphose that way. It's just a very good card at the moment.
Right.
And it looks like Caleb says go, and Brennan says before cleanup, Snapcaster Mage. Gonna target something. He'll target Opt, try to cast Opt. That's gonna, Caleb lets that resolve. Caleb seems pretty content in just discarding here. And then he'll Thoughtscour himself. These lands missing for Caleb are adding up. He's getting more cards as you see him discarding Electromancer, but he's not creating more pressure.
Yeah, the scary thing when you have conditional removal spells like Stubborn Denial, the extra land drops, they add up. Now, this is different if Brennan is ferocious, has a 4-power creature.
And it looks like he will be. He cycled away Street Wraith down to 10 and has a fetch land in hand. So he can make Death Shadow and have those Stubborn Denials just be online now. It's going to put some pressure on Caleb, really.
Right, and then Caleb's actually in a lot of trouble.
Here's Death Shadow plus fetch land, so.
He's got a hand full of Fatal Push and Stubborn Denials.
Caleb's going to remand the Death Shadow. Hits a Gifts Ungiven. Okay, Brennan will make it again. Says go. So this looks like a turn that Caleb might be setting up for, but he just can't hit the mana sources he needs. It's becoming an issue.
Yes. Yeah, you can try to get something going.
And he will. Pyretic Ritual. Brings him out to 3 red. But yeah, just very light on resources here. And with double Stubborn Denial and that Death Shadow, I don't see Caleb getting through it on this, at least not on this turn.
Yeah, there's just too much to fight through. But if he can get some of these Stubborn Denials out of hand just by spending cards he doesn't really care about, that's a fine position to be in.
Storm is at 1, 3 red mana. Caleb will try making a blue mana. Looks like just Gifts Ungiven. Actually, I'll go for a Baral. Storm is at 2. And Brennan is just so prepared here. He has 2 Stubborn Denials and a Fatal Push.
Yep.
So down to 1 red to cast Desperate Ritual. Brennan may respond here. I would see maybe a Fatal Push. Cracks the fetch land. He'll go down to 9. Now he is ferocious. The Shadow's a 4/4.
Yeah, because he has just a bunch of Stubborn Denials at the ready, it does make sense just to Fatal Push down the Baral.
Right. Give Caleb 4 mana. See what you want to do with it. I don't think you want to start Stubborn Denialing with the Baral in play.
Yeah, if Caleb responded with Manamorphose, remand your removal spell, you get that Baral trigger to loot.
Yeah, I would just assume not let any of those loot triggers happen. So here's Fatal Push on Baral. Storm moves up again. Noxious Revival from Caleb, targeting Pyretic Ritual. Caleb's doing all the right moves here. He's checking Brennan on a lot of different things. Now what's going to happen is that Brennan just has all of the things.
Right.
Stack pretty big right now. We have Pyretic, Desperate Ritual on the stack, Fatal Push above that, and Noxious Revival above that. So Revival resolves, Pyretic's on top. Fatal Push now trying to resolve. Will it kill Baral? Maybe not. Manamorphose from Caleb. Out of mana, 6th spell of the turn. He wants to draw the Pyretic Ritual.
I think that one's worth a Stubborn Denial.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. What's happening is Caleb's going to get froze off blue mana. His last cards in hand, these Gifts Ungivens, are just going to be stranded on this turn.
Right.
So Manamorphose is stubbornly denied. And this is really going to be the end of the turn for Caleb. He's got Past in Flames and 2 Gifts Ungivens. There's going to be no help here. So Denial hits the Manamorphose. Push hits the Baral. He gets 3 red mana. There's a Ritual on top of his deck. He just has to say go. It's really a... It's a game-ending exchange for Caleb.
So right now, Brennan has an attack for 6. If he has just some other way to lose life and he found a polluted delta, he has a 2-turn clock.
So polluted delta puts Brennan down to 8, perhaps lower.
It looks like he's failing to find. That's the reason he has a delta now, if he's not finding a land, because this makes it exactly a 2-turn clock over 2 turns.
Yep,
if
7.
If it was a shock land, you would want to just do it next turn in case some weird nightmare scenario happens. You don't want to hurt your life total.
Yeah, but he has it locked up. There's the Ritual on top of Caleb's deck. That's not going to help. And game 1 is won over there by Grixis Death Shadow. It's Brennan DeCandio.
Yeah, Caleb put up a good fight, but just didn't quite have enough.
So we're going to go towards sideboarded games. In just a minute, we'll see if Brennan can hang on for game number 2. Be back in a few. So we're back here, game number 2 between Caleb Scherer and Brennan DeCandio. They go towards sideboard. Now, a lot of times Storm as a proactive deck gets worse after sideboarding, but actually against Grixis Shadow, things stay pretty close.
Yeah, you have some nice tools. We go down the line here. We have 4 pieces of the puzzle, 3 Lightning Bolts, 2 Gigatrouse, 2 Empty the Warrens, 2 Shattering Spree, an Engineered Explosives, and a Wipe Away. So you have some nice things that enable combos. The 4 pieces of the puzzle.
Love that, yeah.
Really good in matchups like this. Empty the Warrens is nice. You just kind of go wide. You don't have to deal too much damage either.
As a Grixis player, how do you feel about Gigadrows against your deck?
I am generally not impressed by this card. Against these builds that just present a really fast clock, against actual Grixis control, I think Gigadrows can be a pretty effective sideboard card in the matchup.
So Brennan's sideboard is not just 8 cards. We're going to read you the other 7. He has 1 Liliana's Defeat, 2 Lightning Bolt, 2 a Disdainful Stroke, and is it Staticaster, 2 Lilianas, the 4th Stubborn Denial, an Engineered Explosives, 2 Collective Brutalities, a Nile Spellbomb, and 3 Ceremonious Rejection.
Nile Spellbomb is actually pretty nice. Right. It makes it so they can't set up out of the graveyard. And then you want to make sure you have answers to the mana creatures, and Lightning Bolt's actually better than Fatal Push. You might not want 6, but you want the bolts more than the pushes.
All right, so we'll start here. Caleb on the play with an island, and Brennan Brennan's going to go to 18 off Street Wraith. Those pieces of the puzzle, I've really liked them in this matchup, especially post-board.
Yeah.
You see that Nile Spellbomb has come in. It's in Brennan's opener. Makes sense.
Keep him off of that Past in Flames.
Yeah, he'll take, it'll be Inquisition of Kozilek, so we'll get a look at Caleb's hand. And we'll see here. For lands, there's just one Shivan Reef. So he's 2 lands. He's got Opt, Lightning Bolt, Pyretic Ritual, Desperate Ritual, and then a Giga Drowse. So this is a kind of hand that's actually really vulnerable to discard. Caleb's, I think, has drawn a bit too much sideboard right here between Giga Drowse and Lightning Bolts.
Yeah, so he has these Lightning Bolts to make it so he can Grape Shot for lethal more easily. He has some rituals for a combo turn, but he doesn't really have any way to get card advantage, doesn't have any cards that actually go off.
Like, I just take the Opt. It's like, what are you, your hand doesn't do anything.
Taking Opt is reasonable. I like, Brennan's taking Giga Drowse. I like that. It makes it so you can fight over a actual counter war if you have some Stubborn Denials at the ready.
All right.
The other, I'd actually be looking at one of the rituals. The fear, even if on turn 2, Caleb just goes Ritual, Ritual, empty the Warrens, that can be a problem.
All right. Okay, you're right. It isn't, empty is around, so that makes sense. Caleb does cast the Opt. He actually takes the card that's on top of the deck. It was Grape Shot.
Okay. He can do some damage with that.
Sleight of Hand from Caleb. Pieces of the Puzzle and Grape Shot. Well, I don't think he wants a second Grape Shot, unless he very much wants a second Grape Shot.
I think he very much wants a second Grape Shot.
So now Caleb's hand has 2 Rituals, 2 Grape Shots, and a Lightning Bolt. So it's just like he's playing this funky burn deck.
Brennan's at 15 already.
So on a turn where he goes Ritual, Ritual, Grape Shot, Grape Shot, we're looking at 7 damage. The Lightning Bolt's 10. All right. I'm in.
It adds up.
Brennan's going to help him out some, down to 13.
Yeah, he's not done damaging himself. He doesn't know about either of those Grape Shots.
Delves for Tasigur. Okay, that's going to make his Stubborn Denial a counter spell. Leaves Opt in the graveyard. Rather, we'll make it a negate. Caleb draws Pieces of the Puzzle. Now, no third land for Caleb. The issue with the burn plan is that there's a lot of cards that don't fit in very well with it.
Yeah.
Like this Piece of the Puzzle, doesn't
Without a third land, he can't cast that. If he could cast it, it builds up his Grape Shot turn.
Yeah, and he can't cast it even if he's willing to spend a Ritual. I believe he just has to pass here.
Yeah, without a Manamorphose, you can't Ritual into that one.
I mean, he could burn 4 cards to remove Tasigur. That's his only other play, and that's horrible.
Yikes.
I guess maybe what he's looking at is Ritual, Grape Shot, Lightning Bolt to kill Tasigur was his thought. It's 3 cards of the Tasigur. It's a huge, he was debating whether that was worth it, decided it wasn't.
Right.
Brennan will make Nile Spellbomb, swings for 4. Leaves up Stubborn Denial. Says go.
Yeah, some good pieces of interaction.
Wipe Away, another draw for Caleb. It's not going to do much. He'll pass back.
Yeah, the draw, there was that glimmer of hope for a second. The last 2 top decks, very unfortunate for Caleb.
Swing here, Caleb down to 12. Brennan passes. Can Caleb hit a land? Can he hit a something? He draws. Manamorphose.
The problem with Manamorphose is you have to resolve spells. And I don't foresee that happening for Caleb just yet.
I mean, you could Ritual, Manamorphose, try for pieces, and then just assume it gets countered.
Yeah.
It's not great.
Something in that chain is getting hit by a counter
And
spell.
he says go, and this is even more dangerous. Brennan just end step, puts a Snapcaster Mage in play. It's a 2-turn clock. He's going to force Caleb to combo next turn into the Stubborn Denial. I like everything about this.
Yeah.
Swing for 6 from Brennan. Caleb's down to 6. And Caleb, this is it. Got to go for something.
Yeah, so there's going to be some action here. He can try to set up. So he's going to cast a Pyretic Ritual here. That's where he probably has to start. I imagine that Brennan just fights that right away. This is probably a Stubborn Denial. Yep, and Brennan goes for it. No land. That's going to seal it.
And that's going to go ahead and do it. So both players into day 2. Caleb,